Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is Dr. Edith, calling in from California. Dr. Edith is a consciousness and human potential coach, a doctor of Chinese medicine, the creator of Luminous Blindfold Program, and the author of Super Wellness. Welcome on, Dr. Edith. It's such an honor to have you on today.
Thanks so much for having me, Peter. This is going to be fun. And I just trust the magic to flow perfectly. And for the perfect ones that are meant to listen to this conversation, thank you for being here. And thank you for inviting us into your home, into your car, into your trail walk, or wherever you are. So grateful to connect with all of you guys.
Yeah, so I'm super excited for today's conversation. It's been many months in the making. We're going to talk about the Blindfold Perception Program that Dr. Edith runs and created. And we're going to talk about manipulating matter with telekinesis, the different connections to telepathy, and whatever else unfolds from there. So I'm really excited. So I'd love to learn how this all started for you, Dr. Edith. Like, how did this journey start for you? How did it evolve? How did the Blindfold Perception Program come about?
Well, in general, how I came to see reality as so much more than this 3D physical materialist reality, I would say where to begin. The real changing point on my journey started shortly after I started Chinese medicine school. So I was already pretty open to holistic possibilities because I had made kind of nail-biting decision to quit a perfectly successful software career after going to Harvard and getting a applied math degree, and my hardworking immigrant Chinese family was so proud of me. And one day I just said, I'm going to quit everything cold turkey and become a starving grad student and a holistic hippie healer and throw it all away. And they were like, oh, what are you doing? What madness is this? But I was so healthy and happy in Chinese medicine school. Like I learned how to take beautiful care of my health, and I just loved everything that I was studying. And when I was doing the software career, I was sick all the time
Mhm.
because I was stressed out and pushing my body so hard, and honestly just living a life that wasn't congruent with my deeper, truer path in this lifetime. So often that's how it happens, right? Like your body will tell you if you're not aligned to your truest, deepest purpose.
Mhm.
So anyway, I was in Chinese medicine school, and Chinese medicine school is such a wonderful experience because you learn all the theory, but you also do the practice. So my favorite classes in Chinese medicine school was acupuncture techniques class, where we learn how to guide the qi flow, and we study the meridian system and really work precisely with it. And also in Qigong class, we learn to meditate, but not just meditate in terms of like what people think of meditation, just watch your thoughts come and go like clouds. No, we work with the energetics of deep breathing, moving the chi, attuning our attention and intention, synchronized with the breath, guiding the chi to flow in certain ways. And it was such a beautiful experience to actually not just be in your headspace memorizing and regurgitating factoids and passing board exams, but
Right.
actually go into the direct experience of working with energy in Qigong class. So I loved Qigong so much that our teacher in my Chinese medicine school at that time taught some Qigong classes outside of school. So I would take some of these additional classes outside of school to keep practicing.
Beautiful.
On top of that, I was apprenticing with a Qigong healer, where at his clinical practice, every day I saw impossible possibilities in his Chinese medicine clinic, and he did a lot of Qigong healing work there too.
Mm.
Anyway, so I was still in Chinese medicine school. I was taking one of these more advanced Qigong classes outside of school.
Mhm.
And every time I practiced Qigong, it was always a beautiful experience. So this day was no different, except I went deeper and deeper and deeper. And this particular class, the teacher was guiding us with this practice that was a synchronization of our third eye with our heart center. And there was some different practices that were deeper, more advanced, more precise.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was the practice or if it was just in my chart, the planetary alignments. Something happened in that meditation where I went exceptionally deep into the meditation.
Mhm.
So deep that all of a sudden, the whole thing exploded into infinite bits of love and light.
Wow.
And suddenly there was no more time, no more space, no more experience of physicality, no more identity as Edith Chan, a young 20-something-year-old grad student sitting in a classroom in San Francisco.
Mhm.
All of that just vanished. And now I realize that this blissful, beautiful state of being, this experience of complete oneness with the size of the cosmos, I had gone home. I went back to our natural state. And the feeling was so beautiful. I had not read any books about people having these kinds of experiences. Of course, subsequently, I became a seeker and I started wondering, like, have other people had these kinds of experiences? But at that time, it was the early days of the internet. This was 2003. And I was young. I was just very early on my journey. And I had never heard of anybody having an experience like this.
Mhm.
But somehow I knew that I went home to our natural state. This reality is so much more real than the physical 3D reality. I just knew that I went to a realer reality,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And there was like an inkling of a memory of this question that our teacher had said. She had said, in this meditative state, there's a wonderful opportunity to get deeper answers in meditation. So bring a question to your meditation. So I had brought a question, but it was answered in this like experiential, holistic, 360-degree spherical experiential way, almost like it's omniscient answers meeting that question.
Mhm.
And it was like an instantaneous, holistic knowing experience.
Wow.
And in this state, I understood that every question that we have could be met with this holistic, omniscient, 360-degree spherical, experiential way. And so all the questions vanished because any question could be instantaneously met with all the answers.
Mm.
And so I felt like it was complete and utter contentment. Like there's no more lack.
Wow.
So it took some years after that experience to find words to articulate. Is it infinite love, infinite light, complete contentment, so much peace? Like, how do you use words to describe the ineffable,
Right.
Eventually, in this state, though, there's no time. So I had no reference point for how much time elapsed, but there was a voice from far, far away. And then eventually there was this recognition that this voice belonged to some Qigong teacher sitting in a classroom in San Francisco. And then eventually there was like, wait a minute, isn't there some girl named Edith Chan who's in her 20s sitting in a classroom in San Francisco taking that class with that voice? Huh. Well, maybe this it should go back to that it. Hmm. And then eventually this vastness of the size of the cosmos, this infinite pieces of love and light decided to densify itself and squeeze itself back into this pretense of the physical body. And it was such a weird and absurd experience. It just felt like so absurd that it was almost painful to try to squeeze so much love, so much light, all of this expansiveness back into the density of this physical vessel. It was almost a painful experience to do that. And when it finally landed, it was a clashing of so many sensations, like intense love, gratitude, appreciation for having gone home and remembered what we actually are. And also intense grief and sadness and confusion and anger and despair, and just all these different emotions came crashing in, recognizing that so much of this life was backwards and upside down and built upon lies and the limitation programs. And it was like an instantaneous knowing of so many things being backwards and upside down and not right, not congruent with the deeper, truer reality. So it was simultaneously very clarifying and very confusing for me.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
my inner compass got retuned to this truth. So ever since that moment in my life, I've had this calibration of what feels closer to truth and what feels further from truth.
Yeah, yeah.
And also this evolutionary tension within my system of becoming a seeker, wanting to make my life congruent with what I experienced on that day.
Mhm. I have
And
a
so
quick.
that turned me into a seeker. Yeah, I started traveling all around the world, reading thousands of books about metaphysics, the nature of reality, studying with many different alchemical traditions and healers and many different modalities on top of the Chinese medicine, so that I could piece together this puzzle. Like, how does this work? Why are we here? What is the nature of this reality? So that's how my journey started.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm really curious, when you were in that oneness, did you feel or see like like a cord bringing you back to your body? Because a lot of people, it sounds like almost like a astral projection, but even more than that, right?
I didn't experience a chord.
Okay.
I experienced myself just a completely one with the entire cosmos.
Okay. Okay.
And then it was just a densification back into this physical reality.
Okay.
It wasn't like my subsequently I've had experiences like that, but not that day. That wasn't how it unfolded for me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what a beautiful way to awaken and, experience that. I mean, that's profound. Really, really profound.
I feel very blessed because on my journey of seeking, like, have other people had experiences like this? I found many accounts of near-death experiences that had very similar flavors to it. And so I was on the Jeff Mara podcast a couple of years ago, and he said, who interviews many NDE experiencers, and he said, Dr. Edith, sounds like you had an NDE without the D part. How lucky. I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I
Yeah.
didn't have to, get super sick or have heart failure or be brain dead to bring back some of that knowingness. And I feel very blessed for whatever reason that was on my path to unfold like this pretty early in my life. So, and that experience informed so much of my path ever since.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So where did it evolve from there?
Well, I graduated Chinese medicine school. Then I got another graduate degree to specialize in holistic sports medicine and endocrinology because I was always an athlete. So I love working with high performance athletes to use holistic medicine and energy medicine to help people tap into their, consistent flow states and not peak performance, but consistent high performance. And also in my Chinese medicine practice, I attracted either the high performing athletes or the people with all of the very complex, in finger quotes, incurable conditions.
Mm.
And so, alongside with this clinical experience, tens of thousands of hours of really going deep into what is the nature of our health and our human physiology, and and having a lot of evidence of how incredible a human being actually is, either from the high performing sports lens or people that are really in despair with their health and turn it around very quickly the moment that they bring a few things back into alignment in their lives. So I'm having tens of thousands of hours of this clinical experience. And on top of that, I'm traveling around the world studying with different meditation teachers and learning different modalities. In 2013, I find myself in a darkroom retreat with Jasmuheen, who is based in Australia. She retired recently. She's based in Australia and she's traveled around the world teaching for many decades, and she's written something like 45 books. So in 2013, I go to Darkroom and she rents out the building by Mantak Chia in his retreat center that is built especially for meditation in prolonged darkness. There are other facilities that offer these days, but his facility is special because you can house something like 40 people in the big building, not
Oh,
just one person in a dark cave at a time.
oh,
So
that's
you get a bunch of advanced meditators all having synchronized meditation together for an 11-day retreat with 9 days and 9 nights in complete darkness, meditating in a group coherence way. Like, it's very deep and profound experience.
yeah, that
So it was a
amplifies it way
life-changing
up.
experience for me. I'm sorry, say
Yeah,
that
when
again.
it's a group setting like that, it just amplifies everything so much more.
Yes, yes. And also the types of people that go to not just 4 or 5 day dark room, but an 11-day retreat. It's a really special type of person that goes to such a retreat. So it was very potent, very life-changing.
And where is
When I
that one
came out of
located?
outside of Chiang Mai in Thailand,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, sadly, with COVID shutdowns, they had a hard time maintaining the building. So the building had some damage, and I heard that they're planning to demolish it and build a new one because they have some new investors. But the new one's not going to be the same. It won't, as far as I know, the design doesn't have that ability to do group work in the group space, which was such a powerful experience. So if anybody's listening, I'd love to collaborate with you to make sure that we have a group meditation experience with Darkroom, because there are many more places that are doing individual Darkroom experiences, which is also powerful. But there's something really special about having a facility, at least somewhere on Earth, where we can do group Darkroom experiences. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did the dark room with Jasmuheen. It was such a beautiful, life-changing experience. There was so much to unpack just from that alone. But when I came out of it, I had recalled a bunch of other lifetimes and integrated some of that knowledge and wisdom and remembering. And just life looked more beautiful. I saw life with new eyes after I came out, like the colors and the dimensionality and the access to the multidimensional nature of life got more stabilized for me.
Mhm.
And then when I came back to San Francisco, it was like, wow, somehow I know, hear, sense, and feel things so much more strongly that as a Chinese medicine practitioner, I could see, sense, and feel and know things about my clients. So as a clinician, my results went up. I was able to be so much more precise and helpful with my clients because
Mm,
I just sense and knew things intuitively much better than before.
mhm.
But at night, because I was just starting to open these abilities, I didn't know how to turn it off at that time. So my neighbors in my building, like in a San Francisco apartment building and the neighborhood, I was sensing and tapping into a cacophony of thoughts and emotions and all the stressful stuff of my neighbors. It was like so loud and cacophonous that I told my partner at the time, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't tolerate living in the city. I got to move to the countryside.
Mhm.
So the poor guy, he was like, "Oh man, I like living in the city. I was like, sorry, I can't do it. So we found this little cottage an hour and a half outside of San Francisco in a town called Sebastopol. You know the area,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Sebastopol is such a beautiful, peaceful place. So we got this little place with an acre of land, gardens, fruit trees, a little chicken coop. Not this place I'm in. I'm halfway in between now in Novato, California. But at that time, Sebastopol, just like the serenity of the peace, the nature was exactly what I needed.
Mm, beautiful.
So as soon as we moved to Sebastopol, that energy was so peaceful and so harmonious. I experienced for the first time in my life how my meditative practices, I tapped in so much easier. During the day, natural sunlight. At night, complete darkness. No 5G towers. No neighbors' Wi Fi hubs. We would just turn off our Wi Fi hub and our devices at night. And it was just so peaceful that every single night, I started having these profound dream experiences.
Mm.
And this little boy started showing up and saying, hey, there's a whole generation of us children coming to Earth now.
Oh
And we're
man.
going to show you a new possibility of what it is to be human. And I've been watching you guys a long time, and I've chosen for you to be my mama. Could you please conceive
Wow.
me?
Wow.
And I was like, I wasn't planning on it. In fact, in hindsight, I realized that Dave and I were both of the mindset of, we didn't agree with the old paradigms of education and parenting, where it was just like, sit down, shut up, do boring clerical workbooks in a tiny little desk. Like, what is that? What kind of an education is that, right?
Right.
And we've spent so much of our adult life letting go of the limitation programs of all of that indoctrination of like order following factory worker training that is the old paradigm of education.
Mhm.
And then on the flip side, we have some of our, natural health, more spiritually oriented friends. In response to that, try out kind of like what you would call conscious parenting, but sometimes it just looks like letting the children be so free and wild that it's almost stressful the other way,
Right. Right.
right? Like there's a balance that I hadn't seen a lot of examples for. And I just thought, well, maybe we're not cut out for parenting. Like maybe it's just not for us.
Mhm.
So I had kind of surrendered to the fact that we might not ever be parents because I didn't think that I was cut out to be any good of a parent. And this boy in our dreams started saying, well, we're actually especially choosing moms, dads, and families that are like you.
Mm.
The reason you don't want to be a parent is exactly correct, and you're right. I agree. That's why I want you to be my mama. But the new way that we're going to do it, I need a body. I need to show you through our examples. This new generation of children, we need to show you through our examples. It's not some theory or philosophy. We're just going to get some bodies, be in your families, and we'll show you. And telling Dave this, and he's like, la, 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 I'm not ready to have kids yet. Northern California is expensive. We really like our freedom, ability to travel, and, all of that. So this went on for months. Every night, this little boy would take me cosmic traveling, and we would just like travel across dimensions, flying through the cosmos, and we would play games. And he became my little buddy that I would just look forward to seeing every night in my dream time. He
Wow.
was like my best buddy. So I would just look forward to tucking into bed, like, ooh, play date with my best friend.
Amazing.
And he would show himself sometimes as an orb, and sometimes he would show himself as like a really cute 3-year-old boy. And we'd have these fun cosmic powwows, play dates. Then there was a certain night in which he showed me this scene. He said, look at this ocean full of these orbs of light, and they're all connected with strings and strands of light, a whole web of these orbs of light that he showed me.
Mhm.
simultaneous to that, he showed me, he showered me with this beautiful, peaceful, blissful energy that was so pure and so just crystalline pure and peaceful and healing, this energy. And then my womb space was also getting an energetic upgrade that I could feel. Like it was like a brightening, lightening experience in my womb space that I could feel. And he's saying, look at all of these orbs of light. Each and every one of us have chosen to come to Earth, and each and every one of us have chosen very precisely the moms and dads to conceive us and the communities and geographic locations where we'll incarnate. And as we grow up, we're going to inspire the connections of many different communities all across the earth.
Wow.
And the intricacies of how this is all orchestrated is so much more elegant than I could possibly show you or explain to you right now. But there's really deep dependencies with each and every one of these baby souls incarnating into the different families across the world, that if you choose not to conceive me, because you have the free will to choose that, he disappeared the whole scene. Then each of us will go back to the drawing board and find the next best permutation. Because each and every soul's incarnation has ripple effects across this entire webwork of connections here.
Yeah.
So it's not just about you as an individual or you as a nuclear family unit. It's about this entire webwork of connections and possibilities that we're all co-evolving and co-creating together.
Yeah.
So it's like, whoa, no pressure or anything.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so after that, one day he jumped into Dave's dream also. And Dave was like, okay, this is officially really weird. I had a dream with our boy. He's pretty cute. I'll consider it. And so I think it was August 2013 that he started appearing into my dreams. And then in early April 2014, both of us felt his strong presence. And we somehow knew that that was the day. We just knew, like, oh, today he needs to be conceived today. And so we had this beautiful conscious conception experience where we felt so strongly his presence calling for the conception and his incarnation. And as soon as he was conceived, I felt my womb space go like a breath cycle kick-started in it. It
Wow.
was such a palpable experience that I didn't need to take pregnancy tests to know that he was officially materializing into physical form.
Wow.
And the whole pregnancy was a telepathically guided experience where he shared what he wanted to eat and what kind of, like lifestyle choices that he wanted to be birthed at home in the water. He showed all of that. And I wanted to work with some local holistic midwives, and he made it very clear which one was the choice. And the whole thing was just guided by him.
Wow.
And then once he was born, I didn't know anything about parenting, but he told us everything. He guided us, and so I would backfill the details by doing some research, of course, because I do have a math and engineering background, and I do have like a logical, linear, analytical side of me that also needs to be satisfied. But
Yeah.
it was first intuitively guided, and then I'd backfill the details by doing all of the scientific research to find out that, oh, home births are actually quite safe. And, the stats is actually technically I was a little bit older than average, but I'm like the way that conventional medicine makes you feel like everything's downhill as the years progress. It was like there's not really good scientific data to inform that. And once he was born, the co-sleeping and, the nursing and all those holistic parenting things I started learning about as I bumbled along,
Wow.
And so when he was about 3.5, he said, "Hey, I have a sister. I have a sister. She needs to come now." And he nagged us about it until we finally connected with her and also had a conscious conception experience communicating with her and asking her when she wanted to be conceived. And so now I have two children. They're 6 and 11.
Wow.
So that's kind of like the journey from not thinking we're going to be parents to having these incredible, what I call luminous kids that are guiding and directing us to evolve into a new set of possibilities. And it's because of my older child that I even got into the blindfold vision stuff. And these kids are so incredible. We set up the telekinesis side wheel, and the moment they sit in it, they get the thing spinning. The moment that one of us get a coin stuck on the wall, they'll stick 10 coins. And then I'm like, okay, can we stick a spoon? Will a spoon stick on the wall? And then the kids come along and they stick 100 spoons on the walls, like this new generation of kids really are showing us how natural and normal it is to live a life of expansive possibilities.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never seen the only time I've ever seen anybody do that was on your Instagram reel where somebody was putting a spoon and just attaching it. No glue, no water, no friction or anything. They're just taking it and placing it and it just sits there. What's like from your scientific logical mind, what's happening there? Like, are the atoms kind of like binding? Is our consciousness creating that? Like, how is I'm I've never seen, I don't know how that's happening.
I The honest answer is I don't know. And now I have to face facts, which is that a lot of our participants at our workshops routinely do these things now.
Mhm.
So I actually don't know, but I've bent a few spoons before and I've stuck some metal objects on the wall. And maybe because our biofield has the ability to influence electromagnetic objects, like, is there some influencing of the electrical activity? I don't know the full mechanism of action. I do know that by feel, there's a feeling of sticking a metal object on the wall or on the ceiling that is reminiscent of that buttery, putty, soft feeling when you bend a spoon. And I know that scientists have looked at it might be one of Uri Geller spoons, and they're seeing that the actual material science analysis of the metal is this substantially different from a regular metal spoon once he's played with it.
Okay.
So there's some kind of mind over matter thing that seems to be happening. The feeling of sticking a spoon on the wall and sticking a coin on the wall, there is a certain moment in which you're like, oh, it got a little soft and sticky feeling. There's a feel to it. And then you're like, okay, it feels soft and sticky. I can remove my hand now.
Wow.
So I don't know if there is like a little bit of material change that happens because you focus your conscious intention into that thing getting sticky. But then we've also stuck like pieces of paper, and one of our co-facilitators stuck a biogeometry cube, is an acrylic cube that has different shapes in the inside of it. I don't know if you've seen a biogeometry cube. He just stuck it on a marble wall in the kitchen.
Wow.
How do you explain that? I I don't know what happened there. And we've stuck wooden spoons, not just metal spoons, on the wall. And yeah, pens on the wall, but pens on the fridge too. So how do you explain, or pencils on a fridge? A wooden pencil on a metal fridge, or a metal pen on a metal fridge? With each and every one of those, there's probably a different mechanism of action explanation. And I say, whatever story you have, go for it. Because once you believe you have an explanation that's satisfying to you, then that's a permission slip that allows you to just go for it. And at this point, I've stuck so many coins on the wall that I have so much evidence, hundreds of evidence, pieces of evidence where I'm like, I just know that coins can stick to the wall. So
Oh,
there
wow.
isn't doubt anymore. And so it sticks really easily now. But the first few times I was like, I don't know, it would stick and then fall and stick and fall. And now after hundreds of pieces of evidence, I'm like, of course it's going to stick.
Wow.
So I think some of it is just my mind has now convinced itself so strongly of these possibilities that it doesn't doubt anymore. But in the beginning, it's like, well, I believe it's probably possible, but I also have doubts, you know?
Are you
And so
going
whatever
into
story you can come up with it's great. Go for it.
can you recall like the first time you did it? Did you go into a meditative state? Did you like hyper focus on it and clear your mind? Like, well, is there any like techniques that you would recommend for people?
It's funny because everybody at our workshops, like the sticking coins on the wall thing, some people like to really, really focus. But some people find that if they're too focused, they're trying too hard. And then it sticks if they get distracted. If somebody's like, la, 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 over here, they're like, oh, it's stuck. I was trying too hard. And the moment you distracted me, it's stuck. With
Uh-huh.
spoon bending, for me, I set the intention. And then if I let go of expectations, it's usually when it gets soft.
Oh, wow.
So it's like there's a sweet spot of a flow state that you're in where you are conscious, intentional with it, but then you're not trying too hard and you've let go of expectations of outcome, which is so much how manifestation works, right?
Right.
When you manifest anything in your life, there's a conscious intention of what your heart desires to create with your life. And then you also want to let go of exact timing and exact way in which it shows up. Where it's like universe, show it to me, this or something better.
Right.
Right. I surrender to the highest outcome in this situation. And then the miracle shows up in your life and it's even more magical than you could have possibly expected. There's a lot of that similarity with all of these abilities that is almost like a kid-like, joyful, play-based way of seeing how the nature of reality works.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then how is that tied in? It's just another gift, right? Being able to see and feel with the blindfold on.
Yeah, so back to some of the backstory. I
Mhm.
had first heard about blindfold vision in 2011. I was at a Drumville Melchizedek workshop where he mentioned something about it. And there are these super psychic children in Mexico that go through training with a famous teacher in Mexico that does something called extraocular vision. And I heard that it was like these really special children, they go through a very special kind of training. And if you catch them from age roughly 6 to 11, that's kind of the sweet spot where they can really get open and really strong abilities. And I don't think that they actually said this, but I had this impression that if you're an adult, it's really hard and it's few and far between that any adults can get these abilities activated. Now we know it's not true because now we're about to run our fifth adult workshop where everybody opens up. But I think we're in a different time now. Like we've really hit the 100th monkey effect.
Right.
So I first heard about this phenomena in 2011. Then in 2013, my boy jumps into my dreams and convinces us to conceive him. And he was born in December 2014. Now, fast forward to 2020, this awesome documentary called Superhuman 1, because Superhuman 2 is about to come out soon.
Mhm.
Superhuman 1 comes out, and Carolyn Corey showcases all these abilities around the world, including children that can see blindfolded. And so after the film came out, basically the world shut down and there was no travel. And my boy, who was 5 at the time, said, Mama, this is cool. I think I can do it. Can we take a class? So Carolyn Corey reached out to a teacher named Bodan Dolban, who was trained in a method called infovision, which is one of several methods that had become somewhat known in this super niche world of mind sight or blindfold vision or extraocular vision. It has different names. So infovision was developed in Eastern Europe by Mark Komisarov and Mihaela Isradi. And they got good results, but there wasn't a whole lot of methodology to it in those early days of this kind of work. These days is a lot more mature and refined, our understanding of it. But back then it was like many months of training for adults to begin to even see anything at all. And for children, most of these different methods were offering private lessons in person with a teacher, like 10 or 12 lessons, because they don't want the parents in the room, because the parents could look at the kid the wrong way or grunt the wrong way and distract the kids and shut down their magic. It's real delicate. Like the facilitator has to be in this coherent flow state together with the kid to encourage their opening.
Yeah.
And it's very often that the children will say, "Oh, Uncle so-and-so just came in who has a really like dense skeptical energy and I can't do it now."
Mm,
They have to be in a field of coherence.
right.
And when the children get really advanced and really stable, then they're able to demonstrate in front of crowds of skeptics and so on. Like, for example, my boy recently did a demonstration at a dark, dingy bar with all these skeptics and cameras and, like phones, like all capturing him. And he was still able to do it. But he learned how to do this when he was 5 and he's 11 now.
Mhm.
To take some time for it to get really strong and stable and integrated.
Yeah.
That initial opening, traditionally, they're really cautious not to let parents interfere. Like you want a trained facilitator to do it.
Yeah.
Well, 2020, everything shut down. So we can't travel to take a training with a trainer.
Right.
So Bodan, who was trained in this infovision, is kind of an innovative, creative guy. And he was like, maybe we can try to do an online class. So a few families, like 3 or 4 families, something like that, maybe 5 families. I can't remember. It was only a few of us that were like, let's do this experiment. And it was a little bit clunky, but we were able to activate the children by having the parents try to like do the activities together with Bodan on the computer telling us what to do. So Bodan and I stayed as friends after that. We stayed in touch.
Cool.
And so throughout those years, gradually over time, I had built up a body of work called Luminous Education Revolution, where all these conscious families had heard about the story of the conscious conception and this new generation of luminous kids and their special gifts that they're bringing. And now we have all these really amazing, awesome families in my community, thousands of them that are now on my email list. And many of them are yoga instructors, Qigong masters, Reiki practitioners, remote viewing trained people, and they have incredible like energy healing backgrounds and so on. And now they're moms and dads, and they're so excited to nurture their kids' gifts and abilities.
For sure.
So I got back together with Bodan. I said, hey, I think we can redo the whole methodology. The parents, not only do we tolerate them being there, we can actually really integrate them into the process.
Mm,
What if we did it like this? So we reworked the whole methodology after we put our hearts and minds together for months. It was like, let's do it a 6-week program and just 4 short lessons in the middle. The first week and the 6 weeks, we focus on working with the moms and dads to really teach them the methodology and the secret sauce to success of how to work with the kids. Then the core 4 weeks, we have a very methodical progression. And I had watched him work, and I started, part of the gift that I have is really good pattern recognition, and I'm really good at seeing disparate kind of chaotic things and seeing the pattern and distilling and simplifying into templates and methodologies. So I was able to see that there's a really clean way of understanding the progression of how to nurture these gifts and abilities. So we developed this methodology and we share it with the parents. And then in the core 4 lessons, we co-facilitate together with the parents.
I love it.
And and so the parents are an integral part of the process. And so the parents are excited to also practice with the kids in between classes. And they give us really good feedback because at this point we've had over 300 families go through our program. So these are really exceptional parents, right? Like they're incredible human pioneer type people.
Mhm.
And so they give us a lot of good feedback about how to keep refining the methodology. And so nowadays we're able to get results within just the first lesson. What used to take us, a month to get to that kind of results.
Wow.
And scientists are starting to study what we do because we're getting such exceptional results so fast and so consistently with our program because of these 300 families that have been deeply immersed in the process, co-creating and co-evolving the method together with us.
I love it.
So that's the kids stuff has been absolutely mind-blowing. And the byproduct of immersing the whole family in it is that it ends up not being about the blindfold vision. Yeah, it's really cool that the kids can see and read blindfolded. But what happens is the whole family is healed and changed in this process. The moms and dads are engaged in tapping into a field of coherence together with the kids. And the moms and dads become really attuned to what helps the kids magic blossom even more and what closes them down. And so
Mhm.
that becomes a guiding compass for the whole family,
Yeah.
to make a lot of beautiful choices about how to raise and nurture the kid. And then just fun stuff like the kids will start telling the parents after the class, like, hey, mom, hey, dad, I used my blindfold vision. You should take the 101 and not the 280. The GPS is wrong.
Wow.
Or, Mama, I remember before I was in your belly, blah, 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 all these beautiful stories that the kids start to recall because now they have permission to express their expansive abilities into the family conversation,
Wow.
So it's just there's so many beautiful byproducts of this training that it's really like a game-like form of meditative play that taps us into a super coherent flow state. And as a byproduct, there's so many infinite gifts, different kinds of healing. The children that have dyslexia diagnosis, they put on the blindfold and they read fluently. The children that have ADHD diagnosis, we call it attention dialed into higher dimensions.
I love
Now
it.
they have the skill to hone their attention, right? Because they have this expansive superpower ability, but it hasn't been honed. Then these ADHD diagnoses, they go away because the children know how to be expansive and open, but actually like turn on and off and work with that skillfully so that they can tap into their intuitive knowing in a grounded, embodied way. So as we evolve the children's program, the kids are like, Mom and Dad, why don't you put on the blindfold? Why don't we play with you? I'll teach you. And so the moms and dads start opening up. And so gradually the moms and dads are like, Dr. Edith, we need an adult training
Yep.
for us.
Mhm.
Because for me to keep nurturing my kids' magic and abilities, I need to have access to it too, so we can all play together.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to share the story of how we evolved into adult training, if you like. But I've been talking a long time, so I want to pause for a sec and see if you want to share anything first.
No, that I think it's incredible. I think it's absolutely amazing. There's I've heard of the indigo children, then the rainbow children, then the crystalline children. And it seems like your children and the kids that are coming in now are like that third wave that are really, really tapped in and really teaching, us so much, right? And there's no coincidence that the telepathy tapes are coming out and all of these, profound experiences that the children are bringing to the awareness of the collective is just absolutely fascinating. So so people are able to sign up for the adult training. Is it an online or an in person?
Yeah, our kids and families program is online. The adult one, we haven't evolved into online yet. It can be done online, but it's just orders and orders of magnitude more potent to just spend 3 days together with the adults. So I
Okay.
can share with you a little bit about the adult stuff. Like we can totally do it online, but it's a completely different experience than in person. So I haven't felt called to build an online program because the in person is so potent and so life-changing that really deserves our focus.
And
And
whereabouts
I'm
is it if somebody wanted to join?
Yeah, the in-person adult trainings, we've been offering them alternating between California, lately Northern California near my home base, and Austin, Texas. We kind of go back and forth.
Okay. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
So in the San Francisco area.
Yeah. These last couple ones have been in San Rafael, California.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Just north
that's
of San
profound.
Francisco.
That's profound.
Yeah.
So how many people do you usually take in a group for a 3-day
We
class?
take about 20-ish adults so that each and every single person is intimate. Each and every single person has one-on-one time with us to make sure that they get the experience they came for. So it's very potent and compact, very transformative experience that we have in these days together. I'll tell you how the evolution went because that's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
Because I was just focused on doing the kids and families. I was so enjoying that process. And I really love working with the moms and dads and accompanying them on that transformational journey of being with the children. And the whole family system is healed and uplifted and changed as a result of our kids program. So gradually, the parents say, well, I don't want to do these other adult blindfold or mindsight programs because they're long. It used to be months of training, but more recently was often 6 days to 10 days of workshops. And many of these workshops have traditionally attracted a lot of bachelor dudes that are into like military CIA remote viewing kind of stuff or UFO CE5 contact stuff, which is all really cool stuff too. But
Mhm.
6 to 10 days is a long time if you're homeschooling your children and running two businesses to take time away from your kids.
For sure.
So I thought, okay, if I did an adult training, we want to make it more compact, more concise, and have childcare and actually have the children in-house with us because many of these children who've been blindfold vision activated, them just being present, running around, playing, they're not even part of the workshop. They're just there, and we have nannies doing kids' activities with the kids. Them just being in the field with us will accelerate the activation for the adults.
Oh.
So I want to make it kids and family friendly, even though it's adult training.
Mhm.
So I had that thought in mind, and many of our families said, Dr. Edith, I don't want to go to these other workshops. We want you to host one because it's like the vibe, the family vibe. We want that. So then the telepathy tapes come out, and this woman named Victoria, who's in my email newsletter in my community, she had taken a little spoon bending class with me many years ago, and she's a really soft-spoken, gentle, beautiful soul.
Mhm.
Not pushy at all. But she emails me, she calls me, she messages like on Telegram, and she's voice noting and every possible way to try to reach out and get my attention. I'm like, okay, okay, what is it? And I open one of the emails, and it was like this telepathic teenage savant girl who's autistic wants to connect with you. And here's her message as she spelled on the letterboard. And it was something like, Dr. Edith Dr. Edith is going to help bring telepathy to the world. I need to meet her.
Oh wow.
I was like, what is that? I teach kids blindfold vision. What does that have to do with telepathy? I hadn't made the connection before, but of course I was very curious to meet her. So I said yes. I got introduced to her mom, who I didn't even know was an expert in teaching mind sight to adult blind people.
Oh wow.
Like blind adults that don't have physical eyeballs, and teaching them this ability to perceive using their mind sight so that they have a better quality of life, so they can find their way around the house and find their keys and move around town using their mind sight
Wow.
because they don't have physical eyeballs. Like
Yeah.
I had no idea that that's who her mom was.
Wow.
I just wanted to meet the telepathic teenager.
Yeah.
So as soon as I said yes, she started coming into my dreams and communicating and teaching me things.
Mhm.
And then finally, I hop on a Zoom call with her mom, and she was like, her name is Dahlia. It was like total kindred spirit, soul sister, instant connection, you know? Some people, you just have that instant recognition the first time you meet them.
For sure.
It was like that with me and Dahlia. And so we started sharing notes about her journey with Mindsight and my journey with the kids and families doing the blindfold vision. And I meet her daughter, and she tells me she starts educating me on how the mindset training will evolve into telepathy training and
Mm,
how this opens us up to be a more telepathic human because all of our senses and abilities will start coming online and how it's all related.
yeah.
And then I asked her, how did you find me? Did you hear me on a podcast? Did I come up on a web search or something? How did you connect with me? And she said, we've known each other for lifetimes. It was just time in this one to remind you of your mission.
Wow.
I was like, the tears start coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was such a beautiful experience meeting her for the first time. And subsequently, she consistently shows up in dreams to teach me different things. And she consistently shows up in the dreams of all the participants in our adult workshops and teaches them things. And many of our adult workshop participants, we meet up on the hill and we get continual lessons with all these telepathic, autistic geniuses
Wow.
teaching us and giving us lessons. So anyway, I connect with Lidu, the teenager. I connect with Dahlia, her mom. And so I end up flying out to their home and meeting Dahlia for some private training. So she's teaching me her methodology with the blindfold vision mindsight work. And it turns out that before she even did the mindsight work, she had trained in a style of Qigong where she had a lot of practice with intuitive touch, intuitive hearing, intuitive smell, intuitive taste, intuitive hovering sense, intuitive knowing. She had a progression of activities for practicing all of these other senses. And then when she put on the blindfold to do the intuitive vision part, she opened immediately, very strongly, very quickly. And she opened behind her head first. So she was able to see stuff behind her head. So there wasn't this doubt that some people have, like, are they maybe peeking under the crack?
Mhm.
She saw stuff behind her head first.
Wow.
And then she opened back up in the front side, her perception. So she had total confidence that this phenomena is real. And when I worked with her, I started understanding how these other intuitive senses can co evolve into the intuitive vision. And I started piecing the pieces together with our children that many of the children will tell us, actually, I don't see yet, but I smell the color, or I can hear the color, or I can taste it, or somehow I know that it's a triangle. I know that it's a A, B, or C. Like I just know it, but I'm not seeing it. But eventually it turns into seeing. Whereas some children will instantly see and then they'll also report, I also smell it, or I also hear it.
Wow.
So there's something like an intuitive synesthesia that is waking up in our circuitry right now.
Yeah.
And the order of which one wants to wake up first is different for everybody.
Right.
But we have specific practices to cultivate and strengthen each of these abilities. And eventually they kind of scaffold together into a holistic synesthesia state,
Right.
you know? So in our adult blindfold training workshops, we offer all these other practices, the intuitive hearing, intuitive sensing, and touching, and all the other ones. And we actually wait until the very end of the workshop to do the intuitive visual or the light sensing, the visual part, the mind sight part. And many people tell us it's so beautiful when that opens, and it also just opens so naturally and so easily because there of the scaffolding of the other abilities that builds up to the vision part. versus just straight to just doing the vision part and not having the reinforcement of the other senses. There's something that stabilizes better when we take this more holistic approach. And also, we also have the spoon bending, the sticking coins on the wall, magnetizing metal, telekinesis. We play all these other fun games so that ultimately it's not about any one of these abilities.
Right.
It's like we just have so much fun playing with expansive possibilities. And yeah, the blindfold vision, the mindset that opens up. And it turns out it's not about any one of these abilities. It's about tapping back into our natural flow state, our natural state of super coherence, where many of these possibilities wants to naturally express itself. So we're cautious not to focus too much on any one of these superpowers because it can get into kind of an ego trip.
Right.
We really notice how people sometimes, if they want to get competitive about it, the paradox is that the abilities often shut down if you get into your ego mind trip about it. And yeah, you can hone the abilities, but your evolution process might be a bit stunted because now you're so focused on these side effects instead of focus on this joyful, playful, beautiful state of being from the inside out that wants to express itself naturally in all these expansive ways, you know?
Yeah, and as you were talking, I'm wondering, there's probably has to be an opening and a connection with the inner child and a connection with the planet, right? Like those two seem really important for, it seems like, the first stages of that, right?
And also the connection with our team of teachers and guides and beings that are in the non-physical realm that are pouring through telepathic inspiration. Like the idea of, well, how do I, for me, what visualization helps me to stick the coin on the wall? What method works best for me to get the spoon to bend? We get this telepathic inspiration, and so there's a lot of opening, multidimensional openings that happens in these practices that we discover. And then it really lands because we have this tangible experience of boom, now I can see the color, or now I can touch and feel the color or the shape. Now I've bent the spoon. Now the coin has stuck to the wall. So all of this tangible, visible, practical, hands-on experiences, it it lands for us. It's not some idea, it's not a philosophy, it's an embodied experience.
Mhm, mhm. For sure, for sure. And so I'm just curious, like, with after you met with the teenage girl, did it start to evolve into more of a telepathy kind of path, or where did it?
Yeah, so oh, I skipped that part of the story. I'm jumping around. So her mom and I decided to put together a different approach to this kind of training. So instead of 6 days to 10 days, that we can distill it down to a 3-day experience. And that doesn't just focus on blindfold vision or mindsight, that we give people a holistic, well-rounded set of experiences and we make it family friendly. And so it's not just a bunch of, bachelor dudes. It's like moms, and she's a mom of 4, I'm a mom of 2, and there's like lots of moms and dads and kids running around all happy and giddy. And, there's, guys, there's girls, there's, just like really balanced, holistic community vibe,
Right.
right? In these 3 days, we have these beautiful experiences, and you're spot on, Peter. It becomes quite a inner child healing journey, and we tap into our connection with the earth, with the angelic realms, and after the workshops, many of us have telepathic experiences either during the workshop. We have telepathic demonstrations by Dahlia's daughter Lidu during the workshop, which opens us to the possibilities. And then many of us are starting to have telepathic experiences with each other, like friends from the workshop. at night. Many of us are meeting each other in dream time on the hill and getting lessons from these telepathic savants on the hill. A lot of incredible, beautiful experiences are happening. So these workshops become like a portal that we all step through, and then many magical possibilities keep unfolding afterwards. You know, we stay in touch as a community, and our 3-day workshop, we have a preparation call, the 3-day workshop, and then we have support calls and support coaching after the workshop also, and we all stay in touch together. So it's so much more than just these 3 days, what happens in the in this community.
I love it. I love it. You know, personally, I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but I've had a few telepathic experiences, some of them with multidimensional beings like the Sasquatch and things like that. And as you were speaking, I was just thinking like what I haven't had that in a few years, you know, kind of shut down. I live in the city now, you know, and I think that might have an impact on it, but also I think the strength of my practice during that time, you know, it was around COVID. I was very deep in my Kundalini yoga practice and, you know, meditating very deeply, grounding in the ocean every day, you know, a lot of those kind of things. And I was just, you know, thinking about how, you know, to maintain that, you know, like what, like you said, sometimes it shuts down, right? Do you know
Mhm.
some of the, have you witnessed people's abilities shutting down for certain reasons, maybe stress or, you know, other things happening in their life or moving to a more 5G saturated areas, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the benefit of these kinds of trainings is for us to just become attuned and aware of what opens our channels and what shuts us down.
Mm,
And that's also a gift, right? Like now you have more informed choices you can make, and there's no wrong way to live life. You know,
yeah,
it's like sometimes we go through waves. I'm like more 3D lately, and I'm more 5D sometimes, and it's all good. We don't
yeah,
have to give ourselves so much pressure, you know? And, you know, with our kids and families programs, that's definitely a huge benefit that the kids will tell the parents very strongly, wow, my windows are really strong and bright and clear right now. Oh, well, my windows got really blurry and I can't perceive or see very clearly right now. And so that's a gift to know what aspects of our life supports it and what aspects of our lives can shut down these abilities.
yeah,
It's all good. It's all beneficial, I think. And then gradually over time we start to there's a few things like we start to make choices that supports us and be more open if that's what calls you. And also as our abilities get stronger and stronger, we can do it regardless of external conditions. So when we're first opening, we be more gentle with ourselves. It's a progression of things. We find that our abilities are really strong in person, in a workshop setting, in a field of 20 or 30 people that are all meditating and all playing these games and so joyful and the high vibe. Like now we have a reference point of what's possible.
right.
Then we go home and we notice that we talk to certain family members, the coin doesn't stick on the wall. We talk to another family member, the coin does stick out to the wall because they have good vibes. You know, like we just start noticing these things and that's all beneficial. And gradually over time, regardless of the external environment, the coin always sticks to the wall if you want.
Right.
Because it is stabilized and embodies so strongly. So, for example, my kid, I was sharing his ability to, with his front blindfold perception, is so strong that regardless of what discordant energy is in the environment, he started his blindfold training when he was 5. He's 11 now. It's unperturbable. The moment he puts on a blindfold, he sees. But behind his head, he only has really good hit rate behind his head when the energy is coherent because that's newer for him. It hasn't strengthened quite as much. Whereas Dahlia's behind her head stuff is really strong. Like I've noticed, like even with cameras, lights, action, skeptic, she's on the stage. It doesn't matter. She's still got really strong hit rates. So, and for me, I have like certain windows that are really, really small, but if I'm in the right environment, they get really, really big, and it changes my perception. So I'm still on the journey. I'm still a student of all of this, just like everybody else, evolving and growing together. So it's all good. We're all kind of going in that general direction together.
I love it. And, I'm really curious, does astral projection have anything to do with the blindfold vision? Are some people like leaving their body and seeing their surroundings? Is that one of the ways that your people are able to do it?
Yeah, astral projection isn't my expertise, but I have experienced it, and many of us are having these similar experiences. So, and some of us experience like fragments of a dream state, and some of us have total lucid recall of everything that happens. So I think these are just all byproducts of our journey. They're adjacent skills, the blindfold vision, all the intuitive senses, the remote viewing, the out of body travel, the astral projection, all of it is kind of building up to being a more expansive telepathic human.
Mhm.
So there will come a time where all of these abilities are as normal as, I call this like a type of literacy. It's like reading, writing, arithmetic, blindfold vision, telepathy, astral projection. These are like the basic skills of a new human,
Right, like
and
learning an
they just,
alphabet in kindergarten, something like that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Except we're at a time in the human story where many people still believe these things aren't possible.
right.
And then there are those of us that are like, it's very much like, imagine if you lived on a planet where people think that all human beings are land animals. And some of us are like, no, humans can swim, actually. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And some people are like, no, I don't believe it. Show me scientific proof. And then some of us are swimming and they're like, I don't know, that looks like dangerous, or I don't believe it because you're still using, some of us are still using floaties, right? We're swimming, but we're not super advanced yet, so we're still using floaties, or we're using like fins to kick with. Because for example, the blindfold vision stuff is way easier if you have really good lighting, and it's harder if it's indoor and dimmer lighting. So a
Mhm.
lot of people's perception is much better outdoor natural light, or if you use a flashlight. But then if you go indoors in dimmer lighting, they might be like, I can't see anything. But if you get really advanced, you will also see in dim lighting too. It's just a
Wow.
progression of things. So some people are like, whoa, if you can't do it reliably under all conditions, then I don't believe it. Right? It's like, well, if we understood it better, we had a more mature understanding. We know that just like any other skill, there's beginner level and there's a progression of things. So don't challenge a beginner swimmer to 100-meter dash butterfly stroke with no floaties if they're still just kind of doggy paddling. Come on now, like, and then you discourage them by saying you're not a real swimmer because you're still at the shallow end of the pool. Well, that person's not going to ever progress to the 100-meter butterfly stroke if you discourage them so early. It's like any other skill, there's a gentle progression of things. And we're almost like teaching a baby. Like, how would you nurture a baby in their first learning colors and learning shapes and learning their beginnings of ABCs, right? We're perceiving with these expansive abilities like a baby taking those first steps right now. So if you encounter people who are doubters and skeptics, I would just encourage more love, more gentleness, and really nurturing these gifts and abilities as if we're raising ourselves like babies, you
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah, and it makes me think that when I was like in my early 20s, I was experimenting with telepathy with my friends. I had 5 different people that I was able to send one word to, and they received it, and it was like our eyes would lock and I would clear my mind and just flood my mind with that one word. And then I would feel that like openness in them. And then boom, they knew the word. And it was really, really interesting because other people I've tried with, it has to be an openness. and that like eye to eye contact seems important when I did it. It's just like you said, it might be like the first stage of it, right? And some of them were just like really close friends. Like I did it with my best friend in college. Another one was some like a close friend. Another one was a previous, girlfriend. And it was just people that knew me, on a more like close level. And they trusted me. They were like, okay, we're going to do this. And then in that moment, we were able to do that. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, telepathy, as I have experienced it, only happens if both parties are open and they have a connection with each other. You
Mhm.
cannot force it upon anybody.
Right.
And also, the person has to be receptive. The person that's receptive has an attunement, just like with the blindfold vision. We're training what it feels like to just boom, get a hit and know, versus what it feels like to overthink or second guess yourself.
Right.
Right. So that's the meta skill that has to be cultivated in someone.
Right.
And you just know, like it's like a boom. There's a feeling of I just know I got a hit of something.
Yeah.
And then very often we overthink it and then we muddle our own thoughts. And the person that is sending that signal has to have a clean signal. That's really helpful to have a clean signal. And it's not just a often what I'm learning and what Lidu and her friend showed me when I was in my recent darkroom in September. They Lidu and her friend from the hill came to visit me in my darkroom meditation retreat and played some telepathy games. And what they were sharing was like, let's say you want to project the thought of a strawberry. Maybe you'll have the word strawberry, but it's much easier to show the image of the strawberry and the smell and the taste and the feeling and the energy of the strawberry. Use all of the senses and project that entire package of multisensory information into the field of that person and let them take it in a multisensorial way. And that's a more reliable set of information to as a whole multisensory package to send to the other person. So maybe play some games like that and see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I really want to do a darkroom experience. I haven't done that yet. I've done a lot of other things, but is there any in the US that you recommend?
I know about the place in Oregon that is really popular called Sky Cave that many people enjoy, but they're booked out many months out. And there's a woman that attended our recent blindfold retreat that is about to open one. So
Oh,
she's working on setting one up. That her name is Megan and she's a beautiful soul and I'm excited to support her. So when that's ready, I'll get back to you. More
okay.
places like this. And we also have a friend and colleague of ours from Jasmuheen's Darkroom Retreat Circles that is working on one I think, in Miami. Like
Okay.
there's a bunch that will open up in the United States in these upcoming years because I think this work is starting to become quite popular.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've had some guests on that have had profound experiences with it. And, I've watched several of the Instagram reels where people take the blindfold off or come out of the dark room and they're like, just like fascinated with everything. So, yeah, I really want to do that. So, I'd love to do that one of these days coming up in the next year or so, hopefully. So,
Yeah, it's a beautiful experience. It's not for everybody, but for people that feel called to it, it's so profoundly healing. I mean, even within the first 3 days, you'll have profound physical healings just to rest deeply in that dark room experience and bathe your physiology in melatonin and DMT and the biochemistry of that immersion in complete darkness. We have so much light pollution, so our physiology isn't getting the medicine that it needs for deep restoration and healing that happens in complete darkness. And then as the days progress, you start having multidimensional journey and visionary experiences that I feel sticks deeper because it's not a medicine like a psychedelic. It's a very powerful, life-changing experience. But part of it is like, was that a hallucination? I took a medicine from outside in. The dark room physiology that changes within your system from the inside out, for me, was more easy to integrate. Like you come out of a dark room without this like strong medicinal blast off, and then you got to integrate. Like you integrate the whole time you're in it. And when you first come out of the dark room, how beautiful everything is, you realize that life has always been so beautiful. To be able to see, sense, and feel the geometries and the depth and like gorgeousness of every nuance of color when you first come out of the dark room, you come to realize that life has always been so beautiful, except sometimes we just don't have the eyes to see it for what it is,
Yeah.
and that experience sticks with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to experience that. So, thank you so much, Dr. Edith. It's been such an honor to have you on today. You're always welcome on. Any links to any courses, any upcoming events, we'll drop that all in the description for people to connect with you. And you're always welcome back on the podcast. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. And for the audience listening, if this blindfold training work calls you, we're actually launching not just the kids and families program, but we're launching a facilitator training program this summer. So for those of you, you may or may not have kids, but you love kids and you're in communities with a bunch of kids and you want to bring this work to the kids in your local community, we're going to give you the secret sauce this summer for how to do that. Our whole methodology that we've been carefully refining over these years with hundreds of families, we're going to package all of that and share it with you. So it's more nuanced to do the blindfold vision activation over Zoom and on the computer and coaching the parents and so on. So our initial program will just teach you how to work with kids locally in person. And then next year we'll have a level 2 training where we can explain to you how to coach the moms and dads and coach the kids and do it over the internet. That's a lot more complex and nuanced. But we want to just get this work. And this, like we shared, this is like basic literacy for the new humans. So if it calls to you guys, go to blindfold.vision and you'll see the kids program, the adults program, and the facilitator program. Go to the facilitator and add your name to the list. And we'd love to share this stuff with your community. So yeah, come and play.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Edith. Until next time, take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye bye.